In the humid, mosquito-ridden swamps of southern Louisiana, the small town of Street Evangeline festered beneath an unrelenting August sun in 2024. The air hung heavy with the scent of cypress and rot, and the Mississippi River's sluggish brown waters snaked through the parish like a reluctant mourner at a funeral that never ended. Street Evangeline was a relic old plantation homes, sagged into the earth beside rusted trailers, their roofs patched with despair. The racial divide here was a wound that never healed, as stark as the muddy bayou against the cracked levee, splitting the white elite from the black and Latino families, clinging to the margins. Marisol Delgado arrived in this forsaken place in February 2024, a 38-year-old Latina, with sharp hazel eyes and a quiet fire that burned beneath her composed exterior. She drove into town in a beat-up Honda, claiming to be a freelance journalist researching the history of sugarcane plantations, a half-truth that masked her deeper mission. Her accent, a soft Texas drawl laced with something untraceable, marked her as an outsider, and her dark skin drew sidelong glares from the white townsfolk who ruled Street Evangeline with an iron grip. To them, she was a beaner, a meddler who didn't belong. To the scattered Latino and black communities, she was a flicker of hope, a woman who might finally speak their silenced truths. Marisol wasn't just chasing a story. She'd come for her brother, Tomás, who'd vanished 5 years earlier after taking a job at a sugar mill near Street Evangeline. The official report called it a runaway case, but the last letter he'd sent her, creased and tear-stained in her glove box, hinted at something darker, whispers of hooded men, a plantation that swallowed workers whole. She'd spent years tracking leads, her grief hardening into resolve, until a tip from an anonymous source pointed her here. Now, 6 months into her stay, she lived in a rented trailer on the edge of town, her nights filled with nightmares of Tomás's voice calling from the swamp. The trouble ignited on Tuesday, August 20, 2024, a day so hot the air shimmered like a fever dream. Marisol parked her Honda near the old Lebeau estate, a decaying antebellum ruin choked with kudzu, its broken columns standing like the bones of a forgotten god. The estate was a ghost story. Locals whispered about rumors of late-night bonfires, hooded figures, and the Order of the Cypress, a secretive cabal of white men tied to the town's founding families. People who asked too many questions disappeared, their names fading into the missing persons, flyers pinned to the diner's corkboard. She'd learned of the estate from Javier Morales, a wiry 20-year-old dishwasher at the town's only diner. Javier had a nervous stutter and eyes that darted like a hunted animal's. Over stale coffee one humid night, he told her about his cousin Mateo, who'd vanished in 2022 after bragging he'd seen something strange near Lebeau. Sheriff said he ran off to New Orleans, Javier had muttered, twisting a napkin into knots. But Mateo wouldn't leave me. We were tight like brothers. His voice broke, and Marisol saw her own pain mirrored in his trembling hands. She'd promised to help, not just for Mateo but for Tomás too. Now, armed with a cheap recorder and a Nikon camera, she stepped onto the estate's cracked driveway. The cicadas fell silent, the air thickening with an unspoken warning. She snapped photos of the sagging porch and tire tracks etched in the mud, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. Each click of the shutter felt like a prayer for answers, for justice, for the brother she'd lost. Then came the growl of an engine, a black Ford F-150, with tinted windows rolling up behind her, dust swirling like a shroud. 2 men climbed out, their faces shadowed by baseball caps pulled low. The taller one, Travis Cole, was broad and sunburned, a Confederate flag tattoo curling from his sleeve like a venomous snake. The younger, Ethan Landry, was leaner, his smirk cold and predatory. They were deputies, but their badges gleamed with menace, not authority. Well, Travis drawled, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. What's a little spick like you doing snooping round private property? Marisol straightened, a recorder humming secretly in her pocket. I'm a journalist, she said, her voice steady despite the sweat prickling her neck. This place has a story history worth telling. Ethan barked a laugh, sharp and cruel. History? Ain't no history here for you, darling. Best scamper back to wherever you crawled from before you stir up something you can't handle. I'm not leaving, she replied, meeting Travis's glare. People deserve to know what happens here. Travis stepped closer, his bulk casting a shadow that swallowed her. You don't get it, do you? This ain't your land, ain't your story. We don't take kindly to your kind poking round where you don't belong." Before she could answer, Ethan lunged, snatching her camera and smashing it against a tree. The crack of plastic echoed like a gunshot, shards scattering across the mud. Marisol stumbled back, but Travis grabbed her arm, twisting it until she gasped. "Time you learn some respect," he snarled, dragging her toward the truck. She kicked and clawed, her nails raking his wrist, but their strength overwhelmed her. Ethan shoved her into the back seat, the door slamming shut with a finality that echoed her brother's silence. As the truck rumbled away, Marisol pressed her face to the window, the Lebeau estate shrinking into the haze. Her arm throbbed, her breath ragged, but her mind raced. The recorder was still in her pocket, a fragile thread of hope. She thought of Tomás, his warm laugh, his promise to send money home, and a tear slipped down her cheek. She wouldn't let them bury her too. The street Evangeline Parish Sheriff's Office was a squat, concrete bunker, its paint peeling like skin from a rotting corpse. A faded Confederate flag sticker clung to the door, defying state bans, a silent boast of the town's defiance. Inside, Sheriff Bobby Ray Guidry lounged behind his desk, a hulking man in his late 50s with a graying buzz cut and a scowl carved deep as the bayou's channels. He'd ruled street Evangeline for 22 years, elected by a white majority that saw him as their shield against change. To the rest, he was a monster, a king, who fed on fear. Travis and Ethan hauled Marisol in, her wrists bound with zip ties, a bruise blooming on her cheek. Guidry didn't flinch, just rolled a toothpick between his lips. "What's this one done now?" he asked, his voice a low growl. "Trespassing on Lebeau," Travis said, tossing her shattered camera onto the desk. "Caught her taking pictures, acting like she owns the damn place." Ethan grinned, leaning against the wall. "Says she's a journalist. Probably one of them illegals looking to stir shit up." Guidry's eyes narrowed as he studied Marisol, a predator sizing up prey. "Journalist, huh? You got papers to prove that, girl?" She glared back, her jaw tight. "I'm a US citizen. I don't need to prove anything to you. Rights?" Guidry chuckled, a sound like gravel crunching underfoot. "Round here, rights are what I say they are, and I say you're a troublemaker who don't belong." He rose, circling her slowly, his boots thudding on the floor. "You know what happens to folks like you who don't know their place? Bayou's got a way of making problems disappear quiet like." Marisol's pulse hammered, but she held his gaze. "Threaten me all you want, Sheriff. I've sent my notes to a friend. If I vanish, they'll come looking." His smirk faltered, a flicker of unease crossing his weathered face. Guidry wasn't just a brute, he was a survivor, a man who'd kept the Order's secrets for decades. He'd grown up in street Evangeline, son of a mill owner, who'd beaten into him the belief that this land belonged to their kind alone. The disappearances Mateo, Deon, Tomás weren't random. They were sacrifices to that twisted creed. But doubt gnawed at him now. What if she wasn't bluffing? "Lock her up," he snapped at Travis, masking his hesitation. "We'll sort her out later." As they dragged her to a cell, Marisol glimpsed the corkboard dozens of flyers, faces faded into ghosts. Tomás stared back at her, his photo yellowed, his smile frozen at 27. Her knees buckled, but she caught herself, a sob trapped in her throat. She wouldn't break, not here, not yet. The cell was a sweltering tomb of concrete and rust, the air thick with mildew and despair. Marisol sat on the cot, her wrists raw from the zip ties, her cheek throbbing where Ethan's fist had landed. The walls seemed to close in, whispering memories of Tomás, his goofy grin when he taught her to ride a bike, his quiet promise to send money home after their mother's death. She'd failed him then, too broke to visit when he'd moved to Louisiana, too late to save him when he'd vanished. Now, the recorder in her sock was her lifeline, a fragile weapon against the darkness, swallowing street Evangeline. She replayed the day's events, piecing together the puzzle. The Order of the Cypress wasn't a myth, it was a machine, oiled with blood and silence, and Guidry was its heart. But why Tomás? Why Mateo? What thread tied these disappearances to the Lebeau estate? Her mind churned grief and rage, braiding into a resolve. She could taste bitter, unyielding. Footsteps broke her thoughts. Travis loomed at the bars, his silhouette backlit by a flickering bulb. "You're lucky, you know," he drawled, his voice low and smug. "Sheriff wanted to dump you in the swamp tonight. I told him to wait, give you a chance to squeal." "Lucky?" Marisol spat, her voice hoarse but sharp. You think this is justice? Travis shrugged, scratching at his tattooed arm. Ain't about justice. It's about keeping things right. You people come here Mexicans. Blacks thinking you can take what's ours. My daddy lost his mill to your kind. I ain't losing more. His words stung, not for their venom, but for the glimpse of fear beneath them, a man clinging to a crumbling throne. She saw her chance. You're scared, aren't you? Scared I've got something you can't bury. He stiffened, then turned away, his boots echoing into silence. Hours crawled by, the cell growing hotter, the swamp's chorus of frogs, a mocking lullaby. Marisol traced Tomás's name into the dust on the cot, her fingers trembling. She wouldn't die here, not without answers. Then came the commotion shouts, a metallic clang and a sudden hush. The cell block door creaked open, and Javier slipped inside, his face slick with sweat, a stolen key glinting in his hand. His eyes were wide, haunted, but his jaw was set. Miss Marisol, he whispered, fumbling with the lock. We gotta go. They're planning to take you out tonight. Heard 'em at the diner. How'd you get in? She asked, rising as the cell door swung free. No time, he hissed, glancing back. Mateo, he'd want me to do this. I ain't losing you too. His voice cracked, and Marisol saw the boy beneath the fear, Javier, who'd clung to Mateo like a lifeline after their parents died in a mill fire years back. She nodded, slipping the recorder deeper into her sock, and followed him into the night. The bayou's damp breath masked their footsteps as they darted to a rickety skiff hidden in the reeds. Javier shoved off, the oars slapping the black water, street Evangeline's lights fading behind them. Where are we going? Marisol asked, her voice barely a ripple over the swamp's drone. To the truth, Javier said, his tone grim. There's a camp deep in the swamp where they take folks like Mateo. Like your brother, maybe. Her heart lurched. You think Tomás, I don't know, he cut in, rowing harder. But I've heard whispers folks seen trucks heading out there, folks who lost kin and got no answers. If he's anywhere, it's there. The skiff glided through the inky water, the moon a thin scar above twisted cypress branches. Marisol clutched the recorder, her mind a storm of questions and dread. Javier rode in silence, his breath ragged, his eyes scanning the shadows. The swamp pulsed with live bullfrogs croaking, unseen creatures rustling, an alligator's splash, but it felt like a trap, its jaws waiting to snap shut. How do you know about this camp? She asked, keeping her voice low. Javier paused mid-stroke, his oar dripping. Mateo told me once, said he saw lights out here fishing one night. Next day, he went looking. Never came back. I laughed it off then, thought he was drunk. But after he was gone, I started listening. Old folks at the diner, whispers about trucks, about people vanishing. I should have believed him. His guilt hung heavy, and Marisol reached out, touching his arm. You're here now. That's what matters. He nodded, blinking back tears, and rowed on. They waded through ankle-deep muck when the skiff snagged on roots, the stench of rot clinging to their clothes. Ahead, a flicker of orange pierced the trees afire. They crouched low, peering through the undergrowth. A clearing emerged, ringed by crude stakes topped with barbed wire. A bonfire roared at its heart, casting jagged shadows over a dozen men in dark hoods. Their chant was guttural, a hymn from some ancient hell, and at their feet lay a bound figure. Dion, a young black man no older than 25, his face swollen and blooded, thrashing weakly against the ropes. Oh God, Marisol whispered, fumbling for her recorder. She hit record, capturing the chant, the fire's crackle, Dion's muffled cries. Her hands shook, not just from fear, but from the echo of Tomás in Dion's helpless form. Javier gripped her arm, his voice a hiss. That's Dion worked the gas station. Asked too many questions about a land deal his mama lost. Been missing 2 weeks. A figure stepped into the light. Hood pushed back Guidry, his scowl replaced by a cold satisfaction. He raised a hand, silencing the chant. Brothers of the Cypress, he intoned, his voice carrying over the flames. This filth dared to defy us, thought he could steal our land, our birthright. Tonight we show 'em, this is our world. The men roared, a primal cheer that sent birds fleeing. Guidry drew a hunting knife, its blade flashing, and Marisol's stomach twisted. She saw Tomás in every glint, his body broken, his hope snuffed out. We have to stop this, she said, her voice breaking. We can't. Javier pleaded, pulling her back. They'll kill us too. We need proof. Get it out alive. Tears stung her eyes, but she nodded, the recorder rolling as Guidry raised the knife. Dion's scream cut off with a sickening thud, and Marisol bit her lip until it bled, stifling a sob. The men laughed, Hood slipping Travis, Ethan, the mayor faces she'd seen in town, now monsters unmasked. Javier tugged her away. Now, while they're drunk on it. They stumbled back to the skiff, Marisol's legs trembling, the recorder a lead weight in her sock. As they pushed off, she clutched Javier's hand, both of them haunted by the blood they couldn't wash away. She whispered Tomás's name into the dark, a vow to find him, or avenge him. Dawn bruised the sky as the skiff reached a muddy bank miles from Street Evangeline. Marisol's hands shook as she clutched the recorder, Dion's death seared into her soul. Javier helped her ashore, his face pale, his resolve fraying. "We can't just run," she said, her voice raw. "They killed him, killed Tomás maybe. We've got proof." "You don't get it," Javier snapped, his stutter flaring. "This ain't just Guidry. It's the whole damn town sheriff, council, rich bastards who own everything. You take this to the law here, you're dead. Then we go bigger," she said, wiping tears and mud from her face. "I've got contacts in Baton Rouge, journalists. Real ones. They'll listen," he snorted, bitter. "You think they'll care about us, some black kid, a Latina, a dishwasher? They'll bury it, call it local trouble. Not with this," she countered, tapping the recorder. "Not when they hear Guidry's voice." They trudged to a cluster of ramshackle homes, the outcast enclave of Street Evangeline's minorities. Javier banged on a trailer door until Rosa, his aunt, answered 50 weary, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She gasped at Marisol's bruises, ushering them inside. The trailer smelled of coffee and grief, its walls lined with photos of lost kin Mateo among them. "They killed Dion," Javier said, his voice breaking. "In the swamp. Miss Marisol saw it, got it on tape." Rosa crossed herself, a sob escaping. "Dios mío, Dion. He just wanted his mama's land back. Bank took it, but it was them the order pulling strings." Marisol pulled the recorder from her sock, playing it back. Guidry's voice filled the cramped space, cold and damning, followed by the chant, Dion's cries, the thud. Rosa sank into a chair, weeping, while Javier punched the wall, his knuckles bleeding. "I should have stopped em," he muttered. "Mateo now, Dion. You couldn't," Marisol said softly, touching his shoulder. "But we can stop them now. I need a phone, a car, anything to get this to Baton Rouge." Rosa nodded, wiping her eyes. "My son Luis, he's got a truck. He's in New Orleans, back by noon. Stay here till then. They'll be hunting you," Marisol agreed. "Every second, an eternity." She scribbled notes, Le Beau, the camp, Dion's murder, her handwriting shaky with rage and sorrow. Javier paced, guilt gnawing at him, while Rosa brewed coffee, her hands trembling as she whispered prayers for the dead. By 11 a.m., on August 21, 2024, the rumble of an engine broke the stifling quiet of Rosa's trailer. Luis, her son, stepped out of a rusted Chevy pickup, a lanky 28-year-old with a shaved head and eyes shadowed by years of hard living. He'd been in New Orleans, hauling scrap to make ends meet, a job that kept him away from Street Evangeline's rot. Rosa hugged him tight, whispering about Dion, and his face darkened as he listened to the recorder. The tinny sound of Guidry's voice, the chant, the thud, it hit him like a punch. "I knew they were bastards," Luis said, his voice low and rough. "But this is some evil shit. KKK-level evil." "Worse," Marisol replied, her throat tight. "They've got power money, badges, the whole damn system. We need to move fast." Luis nodded, rubbing his jaw. "Trucks gassed up. I'll drive you to Baton Rouge. But if they catch us, they won't," she said, her confidence a fragile shield. She tucked the recorder into her bra, safer than her sock, and grabbed her notes. Rosa pressed a rosary into her hands, her voice trembling with a blessing. "Que Dios te guarde, mija." Javier hesitated, then climbed in beside Luis, his fists clenched. "I ain't letting you go alone," he muttered. "Not after Mateo." The road out of Street Evangeline was a narrow asphalt vein, flanked by swamp on both sides, a gauntlet primed for ambush. Marisol's heart thudded as they passed a sheriff's cruiser on the shoulder, its lights off, its driver a silhouette behind tinted glass. Luis gripped the wheel, knuckles white, but the cruiser stayed still. For now, 20 miles out, the illusion of safety shattered. A black F-150 roared up behind them, its horn a guttural bellow. Marisol twisted in her seat, spotting Travis at the wheel, his face a mask of fury. Ethan beside him, with a shotgun propped on the window. Dust billowed as Luis floored the gas, the Chevy sputtering to 65, its engine whining in protest. "They found us," Javier said, his voice high with panic. "I told you they're everywhere." "Keep driving," Marisol snapped. Digging through her bag, she pulled out a flare gun from her camping gear, useless as a weapon, but a desperate signal. The F-150 rammed their bumper, jolting them forward, and Luis swerved, tires skimming the swamp's edge. "Hold on," he shouted, yanking the wheel as Travis hit them again. The truck fishtailed, gravel spraying, and Marisol's shoulder slammed against the door. She aimed the flare gun out the cracked window, her hands shaking. "Cover your ears," she warned, firing. A streak of red light asked into the sky, a fleeting scream against the grey haze. Ethan cursed, ducking as the flare's glow briefly blinded him, and the F-150 veered, fishtailing into the ditch for a heartbeat before righting itself. It wasn't much, but it bought them seconds. "Nice shot," Luis grunted, pushing the truck to its limit. The engine groaned, a dying beast, as the F-150 closed in again. Ethan leaned out, shotgun booming, and the rear windshield exploded, glass raining over Javier. He yelped, curling into the footwell, blood trickling from a shallow cut on his arm. "Get down," Marisol yelled, shoving him lower. Another shot punched through the tailgate, and she flinched as a fragment grazed her arm. A hot sting that drew a hiss. Blood seeped through her sleeve, but she pressed on, her mind flashing to Tomás, his voice in that last letter, begging her to stay safe. She wouldn't fail him now. Ahead loomed a rickety wooden bridge over a sluggish tributary, its planks warped and groaning. Luis gunned for it, the truck bouncing wildly as the F-150 pulled alongside. Travis grinned through the window, a hunter savoring the kill, while Ethan aimed again. Marisol braced herself, the shotgun's muzzle a black eye staring her down. Then miracle, or fate, a state trooper's cruiser crested the far side of the bridge. Lights flashing, siren wailing. Travis swore, yanking the wheel, and the F-150 veered off, plunging into a vine-choked side road. The trooper sped past in pursuit, dust swirling, and Luis slowed the Chevy, pulling onto the shoulder. Marisol's chest heaved, her breath ragged, the flare gun clattering to the floor. Blood dripped from her arm, pooling on the seat, but she barely felt it, only the pounding relief that they'd survived. "They'll be back," Javier said, his voice hollow as he clutched his bleeding arm. "They don't quit." "Maybe," Marisol replied, catching her breath. "But we've got 40 miles to Baton Rouge. We can make it." She tore a strip from her shirt, wrapping her wound, and handed Javier another for his arm. His eyes met hers, scared, but grateful, and he nodded. Luis restarted the engine, the truck rattling back to life. "You're crazy, lady," he said, a faint grin breaking through his tension. "But I'm glad you're on our side." As they rolled on, Marisol stared out the cracked window, the swamp blurring past. She thought of Deon's lifeless body, of Tomás's unanswered cries, and tightened her grip on the recorder. This wasn't just survival, it was war. By late afternoon, they reached Baton Rouge, the city's skyline a jarring shift from street Evangeline's decay. Luis pulled up to the advocate's offices, a squat building humming with purpose. Marisol thanked him and Javier, her voice thick with promises to keep them safe, and limped inside. Her arm was bandaged with her torn sleeve, the recorder a hard lump against her chest, her notes crumpled, but intact. The newsroom was a chaos of ringing phones and clattering keyboards. Marisol beelined for Dana Kessler, a wiry reporter in her 40s she'd met at a conference years back. Dana's smoker's rasp cut through the din as she eyed Marisol's state, bruised, bloodied, unbowed. "You look like you've been through hell," she said, leaning back in her chair. "What's the story?" Marisol didn't waste time. She played the recorder, watching Dana's face shift from skepticism to horror as Guidry's voice spilled out commanding, cruel, final. Deon's screams followed, then silence. Dana stubbed out her cigarette, eyes blazing. Jesus Christ, Delgado. This is a goddamn nuke. You sure you want it out there? These bastards'll hunt you down. They already have, Marisol said, rolling up her sleeve to show the grays. I've got notes, 2 names, dates, the whole conspiracy. Street. Evangeline's a graveyard for anyone who isn't white and connected. Dana whistled, calling over her editor, Paul Thibodeau, a grizzled man with a perpetual frown. He listened to the tape, his jaw tightening, and after a long silence, he nodded. We run it. Front page, tomorrow. But we need more witnesses, photos, something to back this up. Javier and his family will talk, Marisol said. And there's more out there missing people. Dozens. It's all tied to this order of the Cypress. My brother. Her voice cracked, and she swallowed hard. He's one of them. Paul's eyes softened, just for a moment. All right. Dana, you're on it. Delgado, you're staying here till we figure this out. If they're after you, this building's your bunker. Marisol nodded, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. She sank into a chair, the recorder still warm against her skin. The truth was slipping from her hands now, spreading beyond street. Evangeline's shadows. She closed her eyes, picturing Tomás's face fading into Dion's, into Mateo's, and prayed it was enough to bring him home, alive or avenged. The newsroom buzzed into the night, Dana and her team piecing together Marisol's story like a jigsaw of broken lives. The recorder sat on Dana's desk, a ticking bomb, its contents transcribed and cross-checked against Marisol's notes. Paul paced, barking orders, while Marisol nursed a styrofoam cup of coffee, its bitterness a poor match for the ache in her chest. Her arm throbbed, her mind replaying Dion's death, Tomás's absence, each a wound that wouldn't close. By midnight, the draft was done. Blood in the bayou, the secret killings of Street Evangeline. It named Guidry, Travis, Ethan, and hinted at the order's web councilmen, landowners, a legacy of hate. Marisol insisted on the missing Tomás, Mateo, Dion tying their fates to the estate and swamp. Dana dug up a retired trooper who'd tangled with Guidry in the 90s, his words grim. Street, Evangeline's a black hole. Swallows the goods, spits out bones. Paul slammed the draft down. This'll shake Louisiana, maybe more. But Guidry's got friends, judges, senators. You ready for the fallout, Delgado? I've been ready since they took my brother, she said, her hazel eyes steel. This isn't about me, it's about them. Every name on that corkboard. He grunted, a flicker of respect in his scowl. We print at dawn. Dana, get Javier's family on the line. Lock their statements down. Marisol dozed on a break-room couch, the press's hum a distant pulse. She dreamed of the swamp, Tomás reaching for her through the mud, his voice drowned by Dion's screams. She woke at 5 a.m., drenched in sweat, as the first copies hit the stands. The headline blared in bold ink, a grainy photo of LeBeau beside it, her last shot before the camera broke. By 7 a.m., the story was online, and the internet ignited. Hashtags, hashtag Bayou Justice, hashtag Stevangeline Truth trended fast. Baton Rouge and New Orleans erupted with outrage, civil rights groups demanding probes. But the backlash surged. 2 anonymous accounts, spewing hate, lying spick journalist, fake news from illegals, leave our sheriff be. Death threats followed, venomous promises of gator bait and shallow graves. Dana shoved her phone at Marisol, showing a live feed. Protesters, Black, Latino, young, marched outside the state capitol, signs aloft. Justice for Dion, end the order. Counter-protesters waved Confederate flags, shouting about outsiders ruining Louisiana. The divide cut deep, and Marisol felt it like a blade, Tomás's ghost, in every raised voice. They're spinning it already, Dana said, lighting another cigarette. Guidry's on TV, calling it a radical smear, says the tape's fake. Let him lie, Marisol said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The truth's louder. Back in street, Evangeline, Sheriff Bobby Ray Guidry, stood before a podium in the parish courthouse on the morning of August 22, 2024, his uniform crisp, despite the sweat beading on his brow. Travis and Ethan flanked him, their faces masks of defiance, though Ethan's eyes flickered with unease. A clutch of local reporters most loyal to Guidry scribbled notes as he spoke, his voice a gravelly snarl. that carried the weight of decades spent bending this town to his will. This so-called journalist, Marisol Delgado, is a fraud, Guidry declared, jabbing a thick finger at the air. An outsider with an agenda, cooking up lies to tear down our way of life. That tape? Doctored pure fiction. Ain't no order, no killings. We're good folks protecting our home from her kind. A friendly reporter tossed a softball, Sheriff. What about the missing person she named? Guidry smirked. A predator, baring teeth. Runaways, drifters, folks who don't want to be found. Poor parish like ours. It happens. She's stirring up race garbage to sell papers, make us look like monsters. Behind him, Travis nodded, his sunburned neck stiff with pride. But Ethan shifted, glancing at the crowd. A few locals, older black residents who'd lost sons. Latino workers who'd whispered about LeBeau for years, stood at the back, their faces tight with doubt. They'd buried too many questions to buy Guidry's bluster, but fear kept them silent. For now, Guidry's confidence wasn't just bravado. He'd called a closed-door meeting with the town council by noon. 5 white men over 60, their wealth and lineage tied to the order's roots. They sat in a smoke-filled room, ties loosened, faces grim. She's got traction, Guidry admitted, pacing. Tapes out, Baton Rouge is sniffing around. We sue the advocate for defamation, say it's a public safety risk. Buy us time. Councilman LeBeau, a wiry man with a plantation name and a sharper mind, tapped his cane. Bobby Ray, you swore this wouldn't touch us. My granddaddy built that estate, our legacy. You let some spit girl unravel it? Guidry's jaw tightened. She ain't unraveling shit. We clean it up, LeBeau's locked down. Swamp camp's gone by tonight. She's got no proof without bodies. And if they find 'em? LeBeau pressed, his voice low. They won't, Guidry snapped, though his gut twisted. He'd buried too many Tomás, in 19 Mateo, in 22 Dion just days ago, each a weight he carried not from guilt, but fear of exposure. He joined the order as a boy, taught by his father that this land was theirs by divine right, that outsiders threatened their bloodline. It wasn't hate that drove him now, it was survival, a desperate cling to the only world he knew. By afternoon, deputies swarmed the LeBeau estate, torching the bonfire pit, yanking stakes from the swamp camp. The bunker where Mateo had scratched his pleas was flooded, its secrets drowned. But Marisol's tape lingered like a ghost. Dana's team had sent copies to the Louisiana State Police and the FBI's New Orleans office. At 4 p.m., Lieutenant Marcus Bell called Dana, his voice clipped but urgent. Tape's solid, damn chilling. But we need more witnesses, Graves. Can your source deliver? Dana glanced at Marisol, who nodded, her hazel eyes fierce. Tell him Javier and Rosa will testify. There's a camp bodies in the swamp. I'll guide them myself if I have to. Bell sighed. Careful, Kessler. If this is real, these boys won't fold easy. We're heading to street. Evangeline tomorrow, but Guidry's got pull. Might slow us down. Marisol felt a chill as the call ended, the newsroom's muggy heat pressing against her. Guidry wasn't just fighting, he was digging in, betting his badge and the town's silence could outlast her truth. She thought of Tomás, his letter's final line, stay safe. Marion clenched her fists. She'd never been safe, not since he'd gone. That evening, Marisol, Dana, and Louise piled into a rented van with tinted windows, heading back to Street Evangeline. Javier and Rosa had agreed to meet them at a gas station on the parish line, their voices shaky but resolute over a crackling call. The state police promised an escort, but Bell warned of delays. Local resistance was thickening like swamp mud. Marisol didn't flinch. She'd seen Dion die, heard Thomas's echo in every scream. She wouldn't stop now. The drive was a taut wire, the swamp a living wall on either side. Luis checked the mirrors, expecting that black F-150 to lunge from the shadows. Dana smoked relentlessly, muttering about Pulitzers and lawsuits, her legs still bandaged from a childhood injury that ached in humidity. Marisol clutched her notes. The recorder's weight a silent vow, Tomás, I'm coming. They reached the gas station at dusk, its neon sign buzzing like a dying insect. Javier and Rosa waited in Luis's truck, their faces etched with exhaustion and resolve. Rosa hugged Marisol, her grip fierce. You're brave, Major, too brave. Like my Mateo was. We don't have a choice, Marisol said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "They've taken too much, Tomás. Mateo, Dion. It ends here." The plan was risky but clear. Guide the state police to the swamp camp once they arrived, using Javier's memory and Marisol's notes. Rosa and Luis would stay back, ready to testify. But as they waited, a low rumble shattered the stillness. Not troopers, but a convoy of pickup trucks, headlights blazing, rolling in from Street Evangeline. "Shh!" Dana hissed, dropping her cigarette. "It's them." Travis stepped from the lead truck, shotgun in hand, flanked by Ethan and a dozen men, some in deputy gear, others in civilian clothes, their eyes cold as the swamp at midnight. Guidry emerged last, his bulk a silhouette against the lights, a pistol glinting at his hip. His shoulder was stiff, a hint of pain from years of hard living, but his presence loomed like a storm. "Thought you'd sneak back, Delgado," Guidry called, his voice dripping venom. "You and your little spick crew think you can ruin us? This ends tonight." Marisol stepped forward, heart hammering, chin high. "You're too late, Sheriff. The tape's out. The state's coming. You can't bury this, not anymore." Guidry laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. "Ain't nobody coming. Troopers hit delays, flat tires, bad maps. Funny how that works. That tape's just noise till you're fish food." Travis raised his shotgun, the posse fanning out, encircling them. Javier pulled Rosa behind the truck, her rosary clutched tight. Luis grabbed a tire iron, his breath sharp. Dana dialed 911, cursing, as the signal flatline jammed, or just the swamp's cruel luck. Marisol locked eyes with Guidry, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Kill us, and it's over for you. Too many know Baton Rouge. The feds. You're not gods, just cowards in hoods." Guidry's smirk faltered, his hand twitching on the pistol. He wasn't a god, just a man who'd built a fragile empire on fear. A man who'd watched his father die, broke after outsiders took the mill. A man who'd buried his doubts with everybody. "Cowards don't hold this land," he growled. "We've owned it since your kind picked cane and cotton. You're a stain. We're wiping clean." He nodded, and Travis fired a warning shot that splintered the gas station sign. Sparks rained down, glass exploding around Marisol as she dove behind the van. The air reeked of gunpowder and terror, and she pressed her hands to her ears. Thomas's voice whispering through the din, "Stay safe, Mari." She wouldn't nod yet. Then, a crack, not a gunshot, but a branch snapping at the swamp's edge. A figure staggered into the light. Mateo, gaunt and wild-eyed, his clothes shredded, a rusted machete trembling in his hand. His face was a map of scars, his breath a rasp of defiance. "Mateo!" Javier cried, breaking cover. Rosa sobbed, reaching, but Luis held her back. Guidry's eyes widened, his grip tightening. "Well, I'll be damned," thought the gators ate you, boy. Mateo lurched forward, his voice a broken roar. "You left me 2 years in a cage. Eating rats I caught. I broke out when you were busy with Dion. I saw it, heard every damn word." The air shifted, a thunderclap of truth. Marisol seized it, stepping out, her voice ringing. "Another witness. Guidry. Mateo's alive, he'll talk. Your order's done." Travis swung his shotgun toward Mateo, but Ethan froze, doubt cracking his bravado. Some posse members lowered their weapons, uncertainty rippling. Guidry snarled, raising his pistol at Marisol. "Shut your mouth, you wetback bitch. This ends now." Before he could fire, sirens wailed distant, then close, red and blue lights piercing the trees. The posse stiffened as state trooper cruisers screeched in, doors flying open, officers shouting, "Drop your weapons." Lieutenant Marcus Bell led them, a tall black man in Kevlar, his Glock on Guidry. The sheriff spun, firing at Bell, the shot grazing a cruiser. Bell returned fire, a precise round that punched Guidry's shoulder, blood blooming dark. He staggered, pistol falling, his empire crumbling in that single crack. Travis panicked, blasting into the air, and chaos erupted, bullets ricocheting, men scattering into the swamp or dropping guns in surrender. Marisol dove to Dana, who clutched her leg, a stray slug tearing through flesh. "Hang on," Marisol said, pressing the wound, her hands slick with blood and fear. Mateo collapsed beside Javier, the machete clattering away, his strength spent. Luis shielded Rosa, tire iron raised, a futile shield against the storm. Within minutes, the troopers secured it. Guidry slumped against a truck, gasping, his men cuffed or fled. Bell approached Marisol, his face grim but steady. Gutsy move, Delgado. That tape and this. We've got 'em cold. They killed Dion, she said, her voice raw. Tomás, maybe. There's more bodies. A camp. Mateo knows. Bell nodded, signaling his team. We'll scour the swamp. FBI's en route. This is federal now. Marisol looked at Guidry, his eyes meeting hers, defeated, but still burning with hate. She thought of Tomás, of every name on that corkboard, and turned away. The fight wasn't over, not yet. By dawn on August 23, 2024, Street Evangeline was a town besieged, not by outsiders, but by its own unraveling. State police and FBI agents swarmed the parish, their boots sinking into the swamp as they cordoned off the Lebeau estate and dredged the dark waters. Within hours, they found the camp, its bonfire pit still warm, the stakes uprooted but not erased. Then came the bodies, 6 in shallow graves, their bones wrapped in mud and silence. Dion was among them, his face frozen in a plea, and Marisol turned away when they pulled him up, her knees buckling as Tomás's ghost loomed in her mind. Mateo's directions led them to the bunker, a rotting shack half sunk in the mire, its walls scratched with desperate marks. Help, Mama. Mateo 22, a litany of the lost. Inside, they found rusted chains and a tin can crusted with rat bones, proof of his survival. Marisol stood at the edge, her breath shallow, searching the scratches for Tomás's name. She didn't find it, but the absence cut deeper than any discovery. Hope and despair tangled in her chest like the swamp's vines. The Advocate story hit like a hurricane, picked up by CNN, MSNBC, and Fox by noon. The tape aired unedited, Guidry's voice, a cold confession, Dion's screams a haunting echo. Protests swelled in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, marchers chanting justice for Dion, find Tomás, free Street Evangeline. Civil rights leaders called it a modern lynching ground, demanding a federal sweep of Louisiana's rural parishes. Marisol's name rang alongside the victims, a reluctant hero born from grief. But the backlash roared back, fierce and fractured. Far-right pundits branded it a liberal witch hunt, painting Guidry as a patriot shielding his heritage from illegal agitators. On X, conspiracies bloomed. Marisol was a cartel mole. The tape AI forged, the bodies staged. A Fox commentator sneered. This Delgado woman's a nobody stirring race wars. Where's her proof? In Street Evangeline, white residents rallied at the courthouse, waving support our sheriff signs, some spitting slurs at the troopers. That night, a Molotov cocktail shattered against the station's door, flames licking the concrete, a warning from the order's loyal remnants. Marisol watched it unfold from a Baton Rouge safe house, a police escort outside her window. Her arm was bandaged, her spirit bruised but unbroken. The TV flickered with images of the marchers, their signs a lifeline to Tomás wherever he was. Dana, recovering in a hospital bed nearby, grinned through her pain, her legs stitched from the gas station slug. We did it, kid. Pulitzer's ours. It's not about awards, Marisol said, her voice quiet, eyes on the screen. It's about them, Tomás, Mateo, Dion, all the ones they stole. Javier and Rosa testified that day, their voices trembling but clear. Javier spoke of Mateo's laugh, his dreams of opening a mechanic shop, dreams snuffed out by the order's cage. Rosa recounted decades of loss, her husband in the mill fire, her nephew to the swamp, her tears, a river of rage and sorrow. Luis joined them, his truck now evidence, his story of the chase, a testament to their defiance. Mateo, frail but alive, sat in a wheelchair, his scars a map of survival. They wanted us gone, he rasped. Called us invaders, starved me, beat me. I lived to spit in their faces. Guidry, Travis, and Ethan faced a storm of charges: murder, kidnapping, civil rights violations, while the council scrambled, their denials drowned by subpoenas. The Order of the Cypress, once a whispered myth, was now a national disgrace, its tendrils traced to old money and older hate. But the town didn't yield quietly. Some whites fled, homes sold at a loss, while others dug in, forming militias that vowed vengeance, shadows of the order reborn. On September 15, 2024, a federal grand jury indicted 18 men, including Guidry, on 47 counts. The trial, slated for March 2025, loomed like a circus, defendants claiming victimhood, prosecutors armed with the tape, the bodies, Mateo's scars. Marisol would testify, her notes now a book from the advocate Bayou Requiem, a raw elegy for street Evangeline's sins. She'd poured her soul into it, every word a search for Tomás, every page a cry for the lost. The parish fractured like cracked earth. White families split, some denounced Guidry, others clung to his banner, their pickup trucks circling the courthouse with horns blaring. The Black and Latino communities, long-muzzled, rose organizing voter drives, filing lawsuits, rebuilding on the ashes of fear. Rosa turned her trailer into a sanctuary, its cramped rooms a haven for survivors like Mateo, who slept with a light on, haunted by the dark. Guidry sat in a cell, his shoulder stitched but his pride festering. He'd lost everything: badge, power, the illusion of invincibility, but he didn't bend. "I kept this town pure," he muttered to his lawyer, his voice a growl. "They'll see she's the invader, not me." Travis broke first, sobbing in interrogation, spilling names to shave years off his sentence. Ethan stayed silent, his cold smirk gone, replaced by a hollow stare, fear of the cage he'd helped build. Marisol stood on a Baton Rouge balcony that night, the city's lights a stark contrast to the swamp's void. The protest below swelled, signs aloft: Tomás Delgado, where are you? And her throat tightened. She'd exposed a cancer, but the cure was jagged, incomplete. The FBI hadn't found Tomás among the graves, and each empty hole was a fresh wound. Was he out there, alive, lost to her, or buried deeper, beyond her reach? She traced the rosary Rosa had given her, its beads worn smooth by worry. Hate didn't die easy. Guidry's arrest hadn't killed it, just scattered its seeds. The militias, the Molotovs, the venom online, they were proof the war wasn't won. Yet the marchers' voices rose, a chorus of defiance, and she felt a flicker of something: hope, fragile but fierce. The bayou had spoken, its shadows shrinking, one truth at a time. Javier joined her, his arm bandaged, his eyes older than his years. "You think Mateo's proud?" he asked, voice soft. "Yeah," Marisol said, managing a smile. "And Tomás too. We're still fighting for them." He nodded, staring at the lights. "Ain't over, is it?" "No," she admitted, her gaze distant. "But it's a start."